Hello, welcome to Steve McDonald's Crafting. Now, I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with this. I made it out over on my other channel. Nice hollow pyramid, really easy to do. I will link the video at the end of this one if you want to know how to do it. But I had a lot of comments on how do you get rid of this ripply bottom here. So I'm going to show you how I do that, and also how I'm going to mount it onto some wood and finish it all off really nicely so it looks like a great lamp, so you can sell it really easily and at a good price. If I'd have been more careful with the pouring and got a flatter base here, then I'm sure that wouldn't have happened, but you know how I am. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to sand this down. It shouldn't take too long to sand down. It's nice and hard. I didn't have a wide enough piece of 80 grit sandpaper, so what I'm going to do is use these two pieces that I've stuck together. Now, what I would recommend is you wear a dust mask for this. Absolutely a dust mask, because you don't want to be breathing in the sanded resin. And what I'm going to suggest is that you go around in circles like this until you're happy with how nice and flat that is and you've got rid of all the bits. You won't have to worry about polishing any of this up at all, because I'm going to show you what to do once you've done the 80 grit sanding.
This is why I recommend you wear a mask, because it does create a lot of dust. But look at the difference in that. So I'm going to clean this up, give this a wipe over, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next.
Well, I've tidied that all up now, giving it a bit of a wipe over, and as you can see, we've got really quite nice flat edges to that. Any of these little dusty bits, they'll just pull off. If you wanted to do nothing else with it, you've got a nice base, got rid of all those ripply edges, then what you could do if you wanted to is paint on a little bit of UV resin on here, cure it up, and then it's lovely and shiny again. But I'm not going to do that. I want to mount it on some wood. Now, I've got this little bit of pine here. It's just a piece of normal pine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on here so it kind of overlaps a little bit like that. All I'm going to do is draw a line across there of how much I want it to overlap. Yeah, I think that'll be quite nice. I need to cut the same amount off this end, and then I'm going to mitre the edges, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. That's the first length for the glitter side. I'm going to put glitter on there so I know which one goes where, just in case this is slightly different or moved out of square. And now I'm going to cut that across there, and I'll show you how I'm going to mitre it once I've cut it across there. I'm only using a handsaw for this. And I've got a 45-degree angle here. All I need to do is measure that up with each one of these corners and then cut away this piece using the handsaw. Oh, I'm certainly no carpenter, but I'm hoping this is going to work out. These edges might not be as neat as a carpenter made them, but we'll be able to sort that out as well if they're not, and I'll show you how to do that. Well, that seems to fit on there quite well. I haven't glued it together or anything yet. All I've done is sellotape it up to make sure that I know that it works. Now, my corners weren't brilliant, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to fill those anyway, and then I'm going to paint it, and we can see what it looks like. So I'm going to use just normal wood glue to glue this together with, and then tape it up like this once it's got a bit of glue on it so it can dry. Well, this is almost dry now, and I put a couple of staples all the way around in the corner, and all I used was my normal stapler. Opened it up like that, held it flat, and pushed them in. And this will certainly give a little bit more support to the actual frame that is going to be here, and you're not going to see these because they're all going to be underneath. And then I just went along, tacked them in, and they're nice and flush, but I'm going to cover that anyway shortly, and you'll see that as well. The other thing I'm going to do is fill these little tiny gaps, because I don't want them to be there. And how I'm going to do that is I've got some sawdust here that is from where I've sawn bits of pine and things. I'm going to put that into a little shot glass, add some wood glue, and you've seen me do this on other things as well. It works really well. Mix that in to the wood glue so it's made a really thick paste, and then I'm going to fill any of these little gaps using that paste. Push it in nice and firm. Not worried about the underside because they're not going to be seen anyway. And I will give this a very light sand to get rid of any of the rough bits that are there. If I had a mitre block and a proper mitre saw, then it might not have had these little gaps anyway, but I don't, and I have to make do with what I got. Press I'll save for one of those out of the coffees that people get me, which I really appreciate. And thank you to all the people who got me coffees last month. Your names are coming up now. Thank you so much. It's people like you that allow me to buy the bits and pieces I need to make projects with. Well, this is nice and dry now, and I'm ready to be able to sand these off. But before I do that, I want to mark where this cable comes on this side, which is the side with the staples, because I want to be able to ensure that I can push the cable through a gap. Now, I don't want it to be a wide gap, so that'll be big enough. You could centralise that up a little bit if you wanted to. And all I'm going to use is a sharp knife here in this pine, because I don't have a chisel, to cut out a little bit where that's going to go. I've cut that hole now deep enough. I'm just going to give it a quick sand so it's nice and smooth. There we go, so that's nice and smooth, and that cable fits in there really well now. And where these bits are dried, all I'm going to do is give them a bit of a rub down as well and make those nice and smooth. And you can feel when they're smooth. I'm using an 80 grit here. And I'm going to paint this my favourite colour to paint things like this, which is the Arteza Fancy Black. It's an iridescent black. I love it, as you probably know. It's one of my favourite colours. I'm going to paint both the back and the front and over the staples as well. And I will give it probably 3 coats to ensure that I've got a really nice finish on this. Soaks into wood lovely, this paint. I absolutely love it. Well, you know I love it. I love anything that's sparkly. I do like sparkly. I think I was a unicorn in a previous life. My frame's all painted now, and as you can see, it's come out really well. You could have just used butt ends to this, where you butt one up against the other, but I think this looks actually nicer. And now I filled it with that glue and sawdust mix, you wouldn't know there's really any gaps, and I think that's going to look lovely on there. How I'm going to attach this to the frame is by using my eye to look and see that it's in the right place, and then I'm going to use 5-minute epoxy to stick it on. Now, a 5-minute epoxy grips to epoxy resin really well. Best glue to stick epoxy to epoxy, I think, but make sure it's clean and dust free. And because we haven't smoothed off any of those rough edges, it also gives it a bit of a key to stick to. The other thing is, it does stick to wood really well as well. You need equal amounts of this, and you won't need a great deal. And this does dry clear, but believe me when it says it's 5-minute epoxy, it will cure very quick. So you've got to work quite quickly with this. Make sure you're wearing a mask and also gloves, because that will protect you as well. I give it a quick stir. It does fill up with bubbles and it mixes together very, very easily. Now I'm going to put this directly onto the pyramid, not onto the frame. And I'm going to try and keep it to the back as well of the pyramid, because what I want to do is when I push this down, if any squeezes out, I can clean it up really easily using a baby wipe or a damp cloth. And if you're putting it towards the back, just a line like this, then when you push it down, it will spread out and cover the whole of that base. Can you see how this has now gone a little bit clearer? I wouldn't use UV resin or E6000 for this. I would try and use this 5-minute epoxy, and I will link it in the description below so you can get hold of it. I now need to get moving with this, but cable's coming out of there, so I want this to be the front, which is the butterflies and the flowers. I can move that around now slightly to get that into place, to line all that up. It hasn't set yet. I'm going to push that down quite hard so it's making really good contact here, and it will move around until you are kind of ready to finish it off. Yeah, that's as central as I'm going to get it. And now I'm going to go around with my cloth and clean up any of that overspill. And what I'm going to do is leave that now to cure up for probably about 10 minutes. This has all gone hard now, it's all attached to there, lovely. And what I'm going to do is finish it off just with this little pretty tape, which is kind of similar colours. Now how I'm going to do that is put it right the way down onto the bottom. You don't have to do this stage if you don't want to, but I think it just gives it that final finish of looking really good. And then with a sharp knife, cut that tape down there, like that, at the angle that you need it. Then I line up again, put it down, and then with my sharp knife, I'll take that edge off again. And if you don't want to do it like that, I should have showed you first. This is how close and neat the edges look. So if you don't want to put this final edging of tape on it, you don't have to, but the edges, once you've got this frame on, come really clean and nice and neat because we've sanded them all down and also we've stuck this piece of wood on. And the last thing you need to do is just put some little felt feet on the bottom there. And I'm going to cut my little feet out using this round stamp and some felt squares. Like that. 4 of those out. I've stuck those on. All I used was a little bead of hot glue and that will sit on there and it covers up those staples lovely and it makes it nice and smooth. So all we need to do now is attach this lamp base and we just find wherever our cable cutout is, which is there. That then sits onto that and see what it looks like. Well, I think that works really well. It's finished that off lovely, that lamp. That's not going to go anywhere now, that base, at all. It's on there permanently. I like all the individual sides, but if you wanted to, you could make one that had the same sides all the way around. That reminds me of Tiffany glass, that bit there. So I'll show you what it looks like with all the lights off. My camera is going to cause a bit of glare with this. So that's it finished. That's all the lights off. I think that's come out really pretty. I love that. I think that would adorn any room. The other thing is, it will sell really well and you can get a good price for these sorts of things. Because this tape is slightly translucent, the light will come through that as well. And when it's all lit up, I think it finishes it off really well. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to check out the video if you haven't already seen it on how I made this. I will link it at the end of this video as well. If you'd like to buy me a coffee just to say thank you for anything that I've done today and help me buy things and keep these channels going, then the link for that is in the description below. Don't miss out on the next video. Please boop the thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you've not already subscribed so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Take care. Enjoy your crafting. Bye.